The first week away from Emily was strange. At Jake's apartment, it was quiet. Too quiet at first. I didn't have the usual background noise of her music, her chatter with friends, the little sounds of two lives tangled together. At first, it made me uneasy. But then, slowly, it felt like freedom. I started keeping a strict routine. Gym in the mornings, coffee at a small cafe around the corner, freelance design work in the afternoons. I noticed small things I hadn't before, how much I liked being able to choose exactly what to eat, when to wake up, how to arrange my workspace without compromise. The control over my own life felt like a bomb to the raw ache of betrayal. Emily kept texting at first, angry, sad, manipulative, all in rapid succession. But I muted her notifications. I couldn't deal with that emotional roller coaster while trying to find some sense of normalcy. Each ping was like a tug back to the chaos I'd escaped. By the third day, I realized I hadn't cried. Not a single tear. It was bizarre. I expected heartbreak, or at least a storm of anger. But all I felt was emptiness, and oddly, relief. Relief that I finally knew who she really was. Relief that I had a choice, finally, over whether I wanted to continue being treated that way. A few nights in, I decided to revisit my old journal. I'd stopped writing when Emily moved in. Life had been busy, and somehow I'd let her world take over mine. But now, putting pen to paper was like reclaiming a part of myself. I wrote about the hallway, the laughter, my feelings of betrayal, everything. The words didn't make the pain disappear, but they gave it shape, gave it limits. Then, a surprise. I got a message on a different platform from Jessica, the friend who had also been there that night. She wanted to apologize. She said she regretted laughing, regretted not saying anything to defend me. There were no excuses, no I was drunk or it was a joke, just a simple acknowledgement. That tiny act of honesty hit differently than anything Emily could ever have done. It was validation, small but significant. I realized something else that week. Emily wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was sorry that her words were exposed, that people might judge her. That understanding gave me clarity. She wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to take responsibility. And that meant I didn't need to wait around for her to suddenly care. I started exploring hobbies. I had shelved rock, climbing was at the top of the list. I found a gym nearby, signed up for sessions twice a week. The physical challenge helped clear my head, and the community there was surprisingly welcoming. No one knew my history, no one judged me, no one expected anything from me except participation. It felt good. It felt like a world where I wasn't defined by my mistakes, or my girlfriend's cruel laughter. By the end of the second week, I started meeting friends again. Not Emily's friends, not casual acquaintances, my friends, the ones who had always supported me quietly. We met for coffee, went for walks, played video games late into the night. Simple, grounding interactions. They reminded me that my life existed outside the apartment we had shared, outside the hierarchy of her friend group, outside Emily's opinion entirely. Emily's messages kept coming, but I no longer felt compelled to respond. They became background noise, like static I could tune out. She texted about missing me, about wanting to talk, then angry, then sad again. I realized that this cycle wasn't about reconciliation, it was about control, and I refused to give it to her. 2 weeks in, I visited a new bookstore that had opened up near my temporary place. I spent hours browsing shelves, picking up books on design, psychology, even a novel or two. It was peaceful. There was no judgment, no laughing friends, no betrayal, just me, choosing what to engage with. Then, unexpectedly, I ran into someone from that night, Madeline, not Rachel. She approached cautiously, almost shy. She apologized, not for Emily, not for the gossip, but for herself. She admitted she should have defended me. She admitted that laughing along was wrong. And when she said it, with no qualifiers or justifications, it felt different. It felt honest. That interaction, brief as it was, cemented something in me. There were people who could acknowledge mistakes, who could take responsibility. Emily couldn't. She wouldn't. And that knowledge was powerful. It gave me confidence to stop looking back. By the end of that week, I realized I hadn't thought about the hallway incident in hours. The memory was still there, but it no longer burned. Instead, it sat like a scar, a reminder of where I'd been, of what I wouldn't allow anymore. I started to feel lighter, freer, for the first time in months. I felt happiness, not the hollow, borrowed kind from being with someone else, but real, self-earned happiness. I laughed more, moved more, thought more about what I wanted rather than what Emily wanted or expected. And slowly, I started planning my next steps, looking for my own place, building a life independent of her, independent of her friends, independent of that toxic validation cycle. The whole day I felt numb. It's weird how betrayal doesn't always hit like a punch to the gut. It can sneak in quietly, like a shadow sitting on your chest. I kept replaying the hallway scene over and over, Emily laughing, the way her friends cackled. Every detail burned into my memory. Even the way Rachel smirked as she made that awful comment. I went through my morning routine, almost mechanically, shower, coffee, skim through emails. I couldn't concentrate. Every message notification made my chest tighten. Every ping on my phone was a reminder that Emily might be texting me. I didn't reply to anything, didn't open her texts. It felt safer to just pretend they weren't there. By mid-afternoon, I decided I had to confront her. The tension of silence was suffocating. I needed answers, but I was terrified. What if I sounded insecure or controlling? What if she laughed it off and made me feel ridiculous for even bringing it up? Still, the idea of pretending nothing happened was worse. When she got home around 6, she was smiling, talking about some annoying guest at work. I let her finish, trying to steel myself. And then I said it. "We need to talk," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. She froze, her smile faltering. That split-second look on her face, the combination of surprise and annoyance, she knew something was coming. I took a deep breath. I heard you and your friends last night," I said. "I heard what Rachel said about my face, and I heard you laugh. You agreed with them." "Why?" Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Wait. You were eavesdropping?" she asked, voice sharp. "I wasn't eavesdropping," I said firmly. "I was just walking through my apartment. My name was mentioned. I heard it." She rolled her eyes, exasperated. "Oh my God, Vince, it was just a joke. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I held her gaze. "I'm not talking about policing your friends. I'm asking why you participated. Why did you laugh? Why did you agree?" Emily sighed, shaking her head. "You're really this upset about one comment? I can't control everything my friends say. That's not realistic." I felt my chest tighten. "I'm not asking you to control them. I'm asking why you sided with them over me. There's a difference between staying silent and joining in. She stared at me like I was crazy. The fact that you're this upset makes me think you actually care what my friends think about you. Like, do you want them to think you're attractive or something? I blinked. That twist, turning my hurt into my problem, hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth, ready to explain, but she cut me off. You're acting like I cheated on you or something. Honestly, if you're going to be this sensitive about everything, maybe you're not as mature as I thought, she said. I felt a wave of frustration mixed with sadness. Mature. I was hurt, humiliated, and standing in front of my girlfriend, and she was calling me immature. I asked if she was going to apologize. For what? She scoffed. For having a private conversation that you weren't supposed to hear. Maybe you should apologize for making this such a huge deal. That was it. My heart sank. That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to get better. I started packing a bag. My hands shook slightly, but I forced myself to keep going. She followed me around the apartment, asking what I was doing, and I said simply, I need some space. I'll stay somewhere else for a while. Her expression went from annoyed to angry. So that's it. You're just leaving. Yes, I said. Short, simple, final. By the time I reached my brother Jake's place, I was drained. He barely asked questions, just offered a spare room. If she can't defend you in front of her friends, she doesn't deserve you, he said casually. And it hit me harder than anything Emily could have said that night. I stayed awake for hours, thinking about everything the hallway. Her laugh, her dismissal, the years of trust I thought we had. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from her, angry, sad, manipulative. I ignored them all. My numbness felt strangely peaceful. A few days later, I finally allowed myself to write it all down, not here, not publicly, just somewhere anonymous. I needed to process it, and it helped. Pouring out the emotions, seeing them on paper, made them real but also manageable. Then something unexpected happened. Someone from that night, Jessica, not Rachel, reached out. She apologized for laughing, for not defending me. No excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement. And for the first time since that night, I felt a small sense of relief. Emily's messages continued, desperate, manipulative, angry, and sad in turns. But I didn't respond. I realized something important. I didn't need to trash her to protect myself. I just needed to step away. I needed to breathe, and for the first time in months, I did. I never thought I'd hear my girlfriend laughing at me. Not like this, not with her friends. I've been with Emily for almost 3 years now, and honestly, things have been pretty solid. We moved in together about 8 months ago in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. We split the rent and bills evenly, rarely had serious arguments, and for the most part, our differences seem to balance out. She's outgoing, works as a front desk receptionist at a trendy hotel, and has this tight-knit group of friends she's known since high school. Me. I'm definitely more of an introvert, happy to stay in my little corner of the apartment, buried in work or my hobbies. Emily hosts wine nights with her friends about twice a month. Usually, it's just 4 or 5 of them, chatting, gossiping, drinking. I've always given them space. I'll retreat to my office area, play games, catch up on marketing projects, whatever. They're polite when I cross paths with them, but we're not close, and that's fine with me. Last night was one of those nights. Around 10 p.m., I got up to grab a glass of water from the kitchen. Our apartment has an open layout, so walking from the bedrooms means passing the living room. As I passed by, I caught snippets of conversation. My name came up. I froze in the hallway. One of her friends, I'm pretty sure it was Rachel, said, "Okay, but seriously, your boyfriend's clearly been hitting the gym." I'll give him that. But his face, total baby face. The body's solid, but the face, not so much. The other girls made those knowing "oh" sounds, laughing in that amused, not awkward way. And then Emily, my girlfriend, laughed too. "Oh my God, I know. He's super sweet though. Gym definitely helps," she said. Then the punchline. Without the body, his face would be completely unsalvageable. I just stood there, frozen. Not angry, just an intense wave of shame I couldn't shake. I've always been self-conscious about my round cheeks, my youthful appearance that makes me look like I'm still in high school instead of 25. That's why I started working out. If I couldn't fix my face, at least I could control my body. Hearing Emily laugh along with her friends, confirming the very thing I've been insecure about for years. I quietly turned around and retreated to my office. I stayed there until I heard them leave, my mind spinning with disbelief and humiliation. When Emily came to bed later, I couldn't respond. I faced the wall, trying to disappear inside myself while she dozed off. That morning, she asked why I was acting weird. I lied, said I was tired and stressed with work. She accepted it, left for her shift, and I was left alone in the apartment, trapped in my own thoughts. Do I tell her what I heard? Pretend it never happened? How can I forget the image of her laughing, agreeing with them, while I stood there, invisible in the hallway? It wasn't about needing validation from her friends. I didn't expect her to shout from the rooftops that she thinks I'm handsome. But the fact that she could have said something, anything, to defend me and chose instead to laugh cut deeper than any insult could. I love Emily, I really do. But every touch, every word from her now carries the echo of that night. Her laughter, the approval of her friends, the cruel joke, it all plays on repeat in my head. Am I overreacting? Or is this betrayal something that changes everything in a relationship? By the third week, I had made a decision. I needed my own place. Staying at Jake's was comforting, but it wasn't mine. Every corner reminded me I was temporarily borrowing space, temporarily borrowing peace. I started apartment hunting seriously. I wanted something small, manageable, but entirely mine. Somewhere I could decide how to arrange furniture, how loud music could be, how messy the kitchen got without negotiation. The process was surprisingly liberating. I toured tiny studios, compact one-bedrooms, a few with balconies. I found myself envisioning my life in each space, not Emily's life, not the life we had tried to build together, but mine. The idea of finally controlling my own environment felt empowering. I put in an application for a cozy one-bedroom a few blocks from my office, and to my relief, got approved within a week. Moving day was both exhausting and exhilarating. Jake helped with the heavy lifting, carrying boxes through the narrow stairwell. I realized how much I had underestimated the importance of having a space that belonged entirely to me. I arranged the furniture exactly how I wanted, chose colors, set up my little office corner, and for the first time in months, it felt like I was truly home. Life settled into a rhythm. Mornings at the gym, work during the day, evenings exploring local cafes or reading. I even joined a rock climbing class nearby. The physical exertion helped me think clearly, and the small community of climbers was unexpectedly supportive. There was no judgment, no gossip, no pressure, just shared effort and mutual encouragement. Emily continued to text. Some messages were pleading, some were angry, some were manipulative. I ignored most of them, only glancing briefly at a few to gauge tone. The pattern was clear. She wasn't sorry, she wasn't reflective. She was just trying to provoke a reaction, to draw me back into her orbit. And I refused. One day, I ran into Jessica again at a coffee shop. She approached cautiously, apologizing once more for laughing that night. She said the group had been talking about me behind the scenes, realizing the fallout wasn't entirely Emily's doing, but no one had genuinely considered my feelings. Her honesty was refreshing. I accepted her apology without drama. It felt good to acknowledge truth, even if it came late. I also began reflecting on the patterns in Emily's behavior. Every time she texted, there was a mix of anger and manipulation. She framed herself as the victim, twisted my legitimate hurt into insecurity, and refused responsibility. Recognizing this pattern allowed me to set boundaries. I started blocking notifications, muting threads, and refusing to engage in emotional ping-pong.living. Alone brought clarity. I noticed how much I had given up in the relationship, my routines, my hobbies, even my thoughts, often filtered through the lens of her opinions. I could see it clearly now. I hadn't lost a girlfriend. I had regained myself. It wasn't all easy. Sometimes loneliness crept in. Sometimes I missed aspects of what we had shared, the familiarity, the sense of being us. But those moments were fleeting. Each time, I reminded myself, what I missed wasn't hurt, was the version of myself I had allowed to shrink. By the end of the 4th week, I had fully unpacked, fully moved in, and fully reclaimed my space. My gym routine was consistent, my freelance work productive, and my social life slowly expanding with real friends, not just acquaintances. Evenings spent reading, climbing, or just enjoying my quiet apartment felt like a luxury I hadn't known. I needed that the transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional. I laughed freely, spoke my mind without fear, and made small choices purely for myself. The shadow of Emily's betrayal no longer hovered over every thought. I could reflect on it without reliving it. I could recognize her cruelty and manipulation without letting it define me. Then one afternoon, I saw a subtle post on social media. Qley was out with friends, clearly trying to show how fun her life was. There was a trace of a dig, subtle enough that only someone paying attention might notice. I didn't react. For the first time, her opinions, her actions, her social maneuvers didn't matter. I had my own life. I realized something profound. Leaving wasn't just about walking away from a toxic relationship. It was about stepping into a life that was authentically mine. And that sense of freedom, that ability to breathe and exist without constant judgment, was worth more than any apology she could have offered. The apartment, the gym, the climbing classes, the quiet coffee mornings, they weren't just distractions. They were foundations for a new version of me. A version who wasn't defined by Emily, by her friends, or by a cruel joke in a hallway. A version who was strong enough to recognize betrayal, process it, and move forward with dignity. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. It had been about 6 weeks since I left Emily's apartment for good. My new place was small, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. Every corner reflected choices I had made, colors I liked, furniture I chose, the little art pieces I picked up from thrift stores. No compromises, no second guessing. Just me life settled into a rhythm that felt natural. I woke up early for the gym, grabbed coffee on the walk to work, and spent evenings climbing or diving into design projects. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting to someone else's mood or trying to anticipate someone else's approval. I was living for me, and that felt incredible. Emily's messages didn't stop immediately, but I no longer felt compelled to respond. Angry texts, pleading texts, attempts at manipulation, they came and went like waves. I watched them, acknowledged them briefly, then let them fade into the background. My life was no longer entwined with hers. A few days later, I ran into Jessica again at a local cafe. She smiled warmly and apologized again for laughing that night. She admitted that she should have defended me, and that Emily's friends had never truly considered my feelings. Hearing someone acknowledge the hurt, without excuses or justification, was strangely healing. It reinforced a simple truth. Not everyone was like Emily. People could own up to their mistakes. I could trust in that. I also noticed a shift in myself. I laughed more freely, joked without self-consciousness, and started planning little adventures, alone weekend hikes, trips to nearby towns, exploring parts of the city I'd never ventured to. My confidence, which had been eroded over time, began to rebuild itself brick by brick. The gym helped physically, but the mental liberation, the reclaiming of my autonomy was what truly transformed me. Then one afternoon, scrolling through social media casually, I saw her posts. Emily was out with friends, subtly showing off, implying she had moved on, hinting at a life of fun and freedom. There was even a small jab, carefully disguised, about upgrading and refusing to settle. Normally, this might have stung, but it didn't. I realized I didn't care anymore. Her life, her drama, her attempts to make me feel small, they no longer had any power over me. I thought about the hallway, the laughter, the moment I overheard the words that had shattered my sense of self. I didn't feel anger anymore. Not really. I felt clarity. That night had revealed her true nature. She wasn't capable of loyalty, respect, or empathy. That knowledge, painful as it was, became a gift. It freed me from a relationship that had slowly started to erode my self-worth. Weeks turned into months, and life continued to improve. I met new people, friends who respected me, encouraged me, shared my interests. I even went on a few dates. Nothing serious yet, but each interaction reminded me that there were people who valued me for who I truly was, not for my body, my appearance, or my willingness to tolerate mockery. I reflected on my growth. Leaving Emily had been one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made, but also one of the most important. It wasn't about revenge, or proving her wrong, or posting stories online. It was about reclaiming my life. About learning that being disrespected by someone who was supposed to love me wasn't something I had to accept. About understanding that happiness isn't found in someone else's validation. It comes from living authentically. Unapologetic allied occasionally, I thought about what could have been if things were different. But those thoughts didn't linger. Instead, they served as reminders. I had learned, I had grown, I had survived. And in surviving, I had built a life that was mine. The irony wasn't lost on me that Emily continued trying to present a perfect life online, while I was quietly thriving, rebuilding, and enjoying the freedom of self. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was grateful. Grateful for clarity, for the friends who stood by me, and for the realization that I deserved someone who would defend me, not mock me. The chapter with Emily was closed, fully, not with a dramatic confrontation, not with vindication, but with quiet, unwavering self-respect. And that was enough. I continued my gym routine, my climbing sessions, my freelance work, and my quiet adventures. I smiled more, laughed more, and slowly, finally, felt whole again. Not because someone else valued me, but because I had learned to value myself. Life wasn't perfect, no one's is, but it was mine. And for the first time, that felt like more than enough.